I purchased this combination unit of heat and hot water from Navien. The unit was C240 or CH240. Concept is fantastic in as much as it will produce heat and hot water. It's endless hot water, so you don't have to worry about. Bad perspective is that the engineering and design is flawed, seriously flawed, to the point where the thing breaks down virtually every year, sometimes more than once per year, and breaks down with very serious consequences and very expensive repairs. In 2010, when my previous hot water heater went on the fritz, and plumber that I hired to service it suggested I buy a new unit, and he recommended this Navien unit. Said that if I replaced both my hot water heater and my boiler with this, I had a hot water boiler, it would be much more efficient, last forever, blah blah blah. And so he talked me into buying it. Very expensive unit, so it's over $16,000, but it seemed like state of the art, and efficiency would be fantastic. And initially that was. It saved me a considerable amount on my gas bill, well, for about 2 or 3 years, and then started having problems. And problems just mounted every year, virtually every year, sometimes more than once a year. The unit would go down for one reason or another. And despite the supposed 5-year warranty, after 2.5 years, I had to pay over $3,000 for an additional service. It was, I don't remember what that was for, a whole house regulator with air pressure absorption control, whatever the heck that is. But that was supposedly necessary to make this unit work properly. Almost every year, around December, sometimes somewhere between November and January, the thing would die, and they'd come in and try to troubleshoot it, and sometimes they could fix it in a day. Sometimes it took several days, and a year ago it took over 2 weeks, which was absolutely unacceptable when you're freezing and have no hot water. And that's a problem. You can't override this thing with the boiler. You could, whether it's gas or electric, you could usually override those things and get hot water. But there was no way to get hot water or heat with this unit when it would fail. And they always had to, even though these people were specifically trained by Navien to work on these units, inevitably they would call them on the phone every time, and I'd hear them talking about, okay, I've got this error message or that error message, what do I do? And even the experts at Navien didn't know. They would suggest, okay, try replacing this part, and the parts typically had to be shipped out of California, and for some reason they weren't able to send them overnight. It always take 2 or 3 days to get here. They'd try a part and it wouldn't work. Oh, let's try another part. And when you're freezing, it's not an acceptable way to do business. But if you look at my records going back from when I bought this unit in November of 2010, I paid quite an exorbitant amount of money for repairs, even despite this warranty. Circulator pumps were going bad, water sensors were going bad. In my opinion, the largest flaw in this system is that the circuit board is not separated from some water valves. There are some copper tubing that runs through this big unit, and there are O-rings in this copper tubing, and the O-rings inevitably will fail, as O-rings do. And when they descale this thing, which had to be done every year, that's another expense you have to a lot for this, another $200 a year for descaling, despite the fact I have soft water. They descale it, and when they descale it, apparently that sets aside some of the scaling into the tubing and causes the O-rings to fail. And when the O-rings fail, it causes water to spray all over the circuitry and the computer circuits, and causes them to fail, and that becomes an astronomically expensive repair when they do. I was fortunate that mine, the major, was just at the 5-year warranty point, so they were able to replace that major expense. That would have probably been another $4,000 for that, which was covered under warranty. But since then, the circulating pump, right after it went out of warranty, it failed, another $875. Just 2 days ago, it failed again, and I fired the previous plumbers that I had because they were, in my opinion, not as competent as one would hope for. So I hired a new guy. He's also a Navien trained guy, and he came in and replaced the thermistor and sensor, pressure sensor, for another $316. I just paid that yesterday. So it's very unsatisfactory when you have a very state of the art unit that is meant to be much more efficient, and it is more efficient when it works. The problem is that it's not designed very well, and it has a huge amount of service that needs to be taken care of. Even if it weren't breaking all the time, you still got to pay $200 a year just to have it descaled, not to mention having to pay the regular maintenance to have it cleaned and whatever else per year. It's another expense. So it's not economically feasible, nor is it acceptable to be without heat virtually every year for a period of time. You can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be without heat and hot water for at least a few days, if not a few weeks, every heating season. That's basically all I have to say about it. I think it was just very poorly designed. I think the concept is fantastic. I think the design and engineering is terrible. I'm hoping, maybe it's beyond reasonable hope, that they have redesigned their current units so that it won't be so susceptible to breakdowns. And if they would be willing to replace mine with a current model and or give me some sort of a warranty that is ironclad and doesn't have any loopholes in it like the current warranty does, so I won't have to pay for repairs if they do break down, I would be willing to reconsider my opinion of them.